It starts the practice, and the practice also ends with that sound. It has three main characteristics. It embodies the divine energy, and those three main characteristics are creation, preservation, and liberation. And it vibrates at the sound of 432 hertz, which is the same vibrational frequency found in all things throughout nature. It produces positive vibrations. It allows you to feel the whole universe, and you can actually heal your body by chanting that universal sound of Om. Light, are you with us?
Yes.
Islam. And so if you want to go ahead, and that's something for us to think about, and maybe we can close with that universal sound, because I know we have a lot to discuss.
Yes. Thank you, Empress.
You're welcome.
So, Empress, how do we do it? On the count of three, we Om for a period of time, and then...
Well, actually, what I would like to do is I'll give a short directional instructional, I should say. The first thing I'd like for everybody to do is just, when we start the Om, you're going to have actually inhaled, and on your exhale, it's going to be easier to do a fuller count, but you're going to visualize the sound coming from the root chakra, which is actually down in between the legs, between the private parts and the rectum, that space there. And so the breath now is going to come up all the way up through the body, and through the past the solar plexus, into the lungs, past the heart chakra, and actually stop through the teeth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the singing bowl to let you hear what the vibrational Om sounds like first, and then we're going to do 3 Oms together. Okay? Everybody with me? So let's listen to the singing bowl, and it does give off that universal Om sound. Islam. And now together, I'm going to say it first once, and then we'll do it together. And it's going to sound like this. Excuse me, I should have had a drink of water first. Excuse me, I'll start again. Everybody ready?
Okay. Islam, are we going to be on the mic or off the mic?
Excuse me? So we'll consider that the first one, and we'll do it again with the sound of the singing bowl. One last time. You should actually feel this vibrating all the way down to your toes. And the last time. It gets better and more graceful as we practice, guys. We'll try it again at the end of the session.
Islam, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Really
thank you so much.
Islam,
Islam. It's very therapeutic. It has a lot of benefits. Islam, I hope you all try it on a daily basis.
I like that.
Alhamdulillah. We'll do it at the end.
Alhamdulillah.
Do you go into a sitting position, or you can stand, or what position exactly are you supposed to be in?
You can sit, stand, lie down, whatever is comfortable for you. You can do it sitting, lying, or standing.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beautiful.
Islam.
Ooh, boy, that is powerful.
Yes.
I got to get myself together. Ooh, that's powerful.
Islam.
Oh boy. Wow. I needed that. So beautiful. Thank you so much. Our ancestors know exactly what they're doing. They never miss a beat with any of us. You know why? Because they have placed within our nation everything we need. Everything we need is contained within our nation. We don't have to ever look outside of our nation for anything. And having said that, this is just a we graduated this week again. We just keep going up and up and up and up. And the Grand Rising does not, it looks actually like the antithesis of what it really is. It looks like the opposite of what it really is, because we've been trained to want things to be rosy, peachy, going our way in order to get the lesson. But in reality, the Grand Rising looks, if you're looking with two eyes, the two natural eyes, you'll see some things, but it won't be what you think it is. We're already finding out that nothing is what we were told and you know, what our eyes were programmed to see. But when you look at it, when you can see first with the third eye, and then when that third eye becomes the first eye, then it doesn't even matter what's happening. You're going to get what the ancestors have for you in it. We have much, 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 much to celebrate this week. We have much to celebrate as a nation, as a government, as a consulate, as a body. Each of us as justices, judges, consuls, we have much to celebrate this week, because through the things that have happened this week, we're seeing that our ancestors mean business. They mean business, and this is a blood affirmation that we have, an ancient blood affirmation that we will govern this vast estate, and we ain't going nowhere because we can't go anywhere. We can't be citizens. We got to be sovereign. We cannot be not the law. We actually have to be the law. We cannot not govern because there's no other government. We're it. There is no other. There are no other heirs. We're it. And each and every week, through all that we are enjoying and some of the things that we're going through that we don't necessarily enjoy at first, we're knowing right now that we are the all on this landmass. And that, listen, no matter what, it's not like we can send somebody off to another land and be through with them, because that's our land too. We got to govern that too. So we can't get rid of one another. We're it, period. Period. So before we get into our topic, I saw a couple of things in the chat. There was something about someone, I think I saw something about someone talking about clearing up credit or something like that. Islam people in the Facebook group, people are promoting fixing Moore's credit. Please, please, please remove these individuals. I see that there. Justice Apollo put that in there. You all can, please, any of the administrators of the groups, please remove those people from there. Delete their posts, because we're the creditors. No, the only people that can fix our credit is us, and our credit don't need fixing because we never used it. And it's not credit that you can break. So we can, that stuff is not necessary. It's not needed at all. Any credit reporting agency actually reports to us as to who's been using our sovereign status, and then we make them do what they do in terms of compensation for using our credit. So that's how that works. That's the only reason a credit agency is needed, is so they can tell the sovereign heirs, okay, this week so-and-so used your credit. So-and-so used your credit, so they owe you something. They owe you some credit. Okay? So we don't need all of that. All we really need to do is continue to study and use our own, and learn to use our own sovereign credit as the creditor and not in some debtor capitalist system. We use that system. That system is our servant. It's a subject to the Moors. Okay? And that means that credit reporting agencies are subject to the Moors as well. So, you know, that's where that goes. Anything that you all see, because, you know, the ones of us who started those pages are not always able to, we're not on Facebook every day. And so if you see something in there, just report it if you see it, remove it if you can. Those who spend a little more time on social media learning and studying, because that's a tool too, let us know so you can be an administrator on those pages, and so when you see that stuff, you can move that stuff out the way. Anything that might not be, you know, that might not be on the up and up where the Moors are concerned, people offering credit cards and all that kind of stuff, that we don't need that. We don't need that. The credit card companies are lucky that we have not completely actually found out how to make them pay. We know they got to pay. They know they got to pay. So we're going to have to do the study on collecting the credits that are due us as the creditor, and then using those credits, okay? So now, before we get into this topic, I want to preclude the topic by saying this. First of all, this is a topic that we need to talk about because we graduated this week in this manner. It might not seem good to some, but we're so fortunate. Our ancestors made it so that there's no way on earth that we can not be the heirs and not govern. So this week, the judiciary that I was a part of decided that that they didn't want me to be a part of that judiciary. But listen, as we go into this, if anyone starts bashing anybody, I have to mute you, okay? Because this is not that. This is actually, we graduated because even when we disagreed as sovereigns, all of us as sovereigns, even when we disagreed, not a single one of us said, let's go to the Albion so we can fix this. That's a graduation to me. I don't know about y'all. But that is all the sovereigns knowing that the answers to whatever we need is in our nation and not out there. That's self-governing, okay? We don't have to agree, but we do have to remain a nation and govern and not go outside and toss the problem into the hands of foreigners. To me, that's a graduation. We don't have to agree, but we do have to be a nation and we still have to govern. That is huge. That's huge. Because not a single person, not a single Moor in that process said, we gonna go and district court and this and that. It's because it's not about that. We know those courts don't have any, and that means that the lessons are in our minds and hearts and souls and spirits, that we don't need them. We need
Why don't you tell your people that your postage stamps has failed
all day and every day. That's what all of that anger. We love you, man. We love you. Go on. We love you. And we not one time did we have to go to them. So now I guess they're coming to us. I guess, and they will have to come to us. That's why we got to get it together. Okay. Islam, welcome. We have to get our judicial processes together. And here's the thing, you know, we could go into the fact. Hold on for just a moment. Oh yeah, you again. Hold on for just a moment. Let me get that right. So we don't have to go outside of who we are and our nation in order to get things done with regard to our nation. Okay. And so the beauty of this week is that we graduated to that part. Secondly, everyone, and we've said this a million times, but I'll say it again. I'll say it again. all Moors are part and parcel of their government, so we can't get rid of each other, period. That's one thing. Another thing, all Moors are judges and consuls, so we can't get rid of each other that way either. And I'm looking in the chat, Justice Apollo, you're absolutely right. That's the point. He says that he's confused because he thought that we all were the supreme judiciary. Absolutely correct. Every last one of the sovereign Moors are the supreme judiciary on this nation, on this land. All of us. Every last one. That's why any one of us can do a court action at any time against the colonizers, because that's really what this is about. That's what our courts are set up for. That's why they're called consular courts, because it's for foreigners. Okay? It's for us to govern our land so that the foreigners know that they cannot come between the heirs. And then any issues that the heirs have with each other, we talk it out and we work it out. And then we allow the ancestors that are returned within us, okay, to have us deal with one another in love, okay? And so that thing about, listen, there are 1 million judiciaries within this supreme body. We can start 30 of them today. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do we deal with one another in a lawful manner? That's what we need to talk about, okay? That's what we need to talk about. And if we do it in a manner that's lawful, then it has to be, we actually have to make an agreement among us that when things are done lawfully, that we honor that among each other, okay? Now, we did graduate this week. We still got a ways to go. We do. We still have a ways to go. And that's okay because, you know, we knew when we came out of capitalism and said that we know we're the government, we knew we were going to have disagreements among the sovereigns. We knew that. And you know what? We're ready for it. We're ready for it. And by ready, I mean ready for our spirits to commit to one another to the point, Justice Erico is saying that he doesn't have sound. I'm not sure what you need to do to get sound. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Islam. Thank you. Okay. So we have to get to the point, and this is why the ancestors chose us to come in through these manifestations of each of us, is because they knew that we were going to have to get to the point where we do truly self-govern. True self-governance is making sure that we always honor one another, okay? Making sure that we do what our ancestors sent us here to do, and don't ever let anybody stop that, okay? Hang on just a second, because some people are being left out, and I don't want them left out just because of the infiltrator. And so it's up to us, okay, to determine in our hearts that self-governance is what we're going to do, and that we're going to do it lawfully and honorably with each other. And then our courts are for the someone's not muted. Let me see. Maybe I haven't seen. Let's see. Can you hear? Yeah, we can hear you, Justice Erico. We can hear you. Okay, and so
you can ask everybody how you
we actually have to we actually have to deal with one another in a way that is honorable and in a way that is fair and just and according to the law, actually. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that anybody didn't do that. What I'm talking about today is us as a nation. We have to agree to be honorable with one another, okay? We have to agree to be honorable, and this is the thing about that question. Let's go into that question because I want to hear what you have to say about the question, and we're not going to get per se into anything specific. I just want to hear what you have to say about the question, because it must be answered, because we are self-governing now. And I'm so excited about that I can't even, I'm surprised I'm still in my skin. Okay? Because I know we don't need them. I know we don't need their courts. I know that. And now we all know it. Okay? So if you all will just unmute and look at the question, and the question for discussion, this is for our discussion, and please let's remember the OM as we go into this discussion. I'll say this about going into the discussion. If we don't think about personal situations and actually just keep it a lawful conversation, you must state stare decisis and res judicata to support what you have to say. So the question is, do the Moors have jurisdiction over other Moors? That's question number one. Support your response with the law, stare decisis and res judicata, okay? And also, the second question is, can Moors assume jurisdiction over other Moors without their sovereign consent? And then again, anything that you say, support your response with the law, stare decisis and res judicata, and then also, I'll give you a hint about jurisdiction, okay? If you have the judicial proclamation, you know we have a name change and we have a judicial proclamation. If you look on the judicial proclamation, you'll be able to quote any stare decisis that to support your sovereign answer, okay? To support your sovereign answer, and we're going to keep it to those questions right there, not looking at circumstances and subject matter. We want to stick to jurisdiction, because remember, jurisdiction is the first thing that they have to get past before you can even get to subject matter. So let's talk jurisdiction, okay? So if you want to unmute, do the Moors have jurisdiction over other Moors? And you can star 6 to unmute yourself. And you must state the law. I'll give it a minute or two.
Islam, this is Janaya.
Yes. Go ahead, Justice.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I do not have a code or a law that's written that I can refer anyone to, because when we are the law, which is being spirit, being creators, being God, there's none higher. And when you recognize that and live it, you do not need a law to prove it. You just be it. I yield. That is written. A law that's written, in other words.
Islam.
I yield.
Islam. Justice Malik, it's open. She can come in. It's open. Tell her to come in. That's good. That's looking at it from a metaphysical perspective and from what sovereignty really means. Does anyone have Islam? Does anyone have just a minute? Does anyone have a dictionary and can look up the word sovereign and what that means? Can anyone tell us what the word sovereign means?
I have it. This is Vandoria, and I have the Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, sovereign. Put on my glasses here.
And tell us if it's the
Sovereign.
noun or the verb, etc.
It doesn't break that down. Nowhere in this dictionary. Nowhere in this dictionary. But 1568 is the page number that sovereign is on. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Let me turn the fan off. Maybe that'll make a difference.
There's a little bit of background noise coming from a couple of places. But
can you hear me better?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, I turned the fan off. Maybe that was it. Sovereign on page 1568 of the Black's Laws Dictionary, 4th edition. A person, body, or state in which independent and supreme authority is vested. A chief ruler with supreme power. A king or other ruler with limited power. In English law, a gold coin of Great Britain of the value of £1 sterling. I'm not sure what that, but that's what it says right up under it, and that's it. That's all it says.
Thank you.
So read that one more time, Empress, because I'm hearing supreme and sovereign and all of that. Go ahead, Empress.
Sovereign, S-O-V-E-R-E. IGN, and sometimes we put an E on the end for our jurisdiction of Phoenician. And that on page 1568 of the Black Laws Dictionary, 4th edition. Ready?
Yes.
A person, body, or state in which independent and supreme authority is vested. A chief ruler with supreme power, a king or other ruler with limited power.
Islam. So let me break that down just a little bit further. When they talk about supreme, sovereign, kings, and that sort of thing, they're not really they're not really sovereign. They derive their power from the sovereign office that we, the sovereign, the true sovereigns, delegate. That's why England has a king and a queen instead of being the sovereign supreme, whatever, ruler or the sovereign supreme, whatever. Because it is only by virtue of the office that we have said you can have that office. And we give the office, whoever's in that office has limited power, like you said. Kings and those people have limited power. It's limited because it only applies to the office, and that's only as directed by the actual sovereign. Okay? But when you talk about the sovereigns as in the Moors, okay, and that's each and every Moor. No Moor is more sovereign or supreme than another. No Moor has more authority than another. Not a single one of us has more authority than the other. Some of us are louder than the others. Some of us have a little more time to study. Either way, you have to do what you have to do on this land until we completely set ourselves free from what we are doing here. But that's the purpose of this transition of authority, etc. Islam, go ahead.
In the judiciary notice, it says only Moors can present and depict themselves as being Moors, Al-Moroccan, Aboriginal, indigenous of the land. Thus, only Moors can present self. So would that be Moors, because the question said, can other Moors have jurisdiction? So when I'm reading that sentence, it's stating only the Moors can present. And this is a part of the judiciary notice and proclamation.
Okay, read that one more time, Empress, so we can hear it. Only Moors.
Only Moors can present and depict themselves as being Moors, Al-Moroccan, and Aboriginal, indigenous of the land. Thus, only Moors can present self.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if that, okay.
That is applicable. no one represents the Moors present themselves. We don't even represent one another, okay? We don't even represent one another. And if a Moor says something, okay, and they say your sovereign appellation as if they're representing you, and you don't consent to that, then they can't do it. It just cannot be done. No matter how often they say it, it can't be done because the sovereign has to consent. Now, remember that when we're dealing with the service corporation, the only way they could do anything is by our consent. And at the time, for most of us, it was ignorant consent because we just did not remember that they don't have any authority over us. We didn't remember that at all, you know. But ultimately, they know that they don't have authority. Now, as far as res judicata and stare decisis, some of the members, or not members, I didn't really mean that, because we're all members of the judiciary, but anyone who can quote any stare decisis or res judicata with regard to jurisdiction, can you go ahead and state that, and then I'll state a little bit too. Okay, the main one that applies, that comes to my mind, there are two, and they're very similar, and both of them are on our judicial proclamation. The judicial proclamation says that jurisdiction cannot be waived even by consent of both parties. And another one is lack of jurisdiction cannot be overcome even by consent even by consent of both parties. Okay, so even the only way that I can see, and correct me, the only way that I can see that any judicial body would have jurisdiction over any more, and I can see where all of this came into being. The only way any judicial body can have jurisdiction over any more, and it's not really even jurisdiction, is if that more says, okay, I'm going to consent to this process for the sake of the peace, because we want to keep the peace. So I'm going to consent to the process of arbitration or whatever the case may be in order to keep the peace in, but see, we actually have to govern in a manner
May I interject?
Yes, go ahead, Empress. Go ahead, Empress.
Yes, this is Jonaya. Because I was just saying, while you were saying that, the only way someone can have jurisdiction over more, I don't remember exactly what you said, but what came to my mind was the only time that someone or anyone can have jurisdiction over a more, or a natural living live being, is when that being falls consciously to that level where they don't have the understanding that who they are, in other words. And that way, yeah, when you don't know. So that does fall in line with knowing who you are, so that you don't fall underneath anyone's consent. I yield.
Even then, yes, Empress, even then, though, they do not have jurisdiction, even if we don't know. Remember, the colonizers did not have jurisdiction over us even when we didn't know. That's why everything is nunc pro tunc. Now for them.
Well, maybe I should change the word and didn't say they take jurisdiction. Not that they have it. Not that they have it, but they take it, and
and that's unlawful, isn't it?
Right.
That's why we're waking up. That's why we're waking up. And that's why they're backing off. The colonizers are backing off because they know they can't get away with that.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Ooh, Justice
Good Lamont Maurice L.
Y'all look
on
in
the
the
call.
chat. Y'all look in the chat. Go ahead, Nobility. I'm not going to read that out, but go ahead, Justice Lamont.
No, I was just announcing. It said to announce myself. I was just announcing.
Oh, okay.
Islam.
Okay.
Islam knows.
Islam. Islam. So, again, you know, even when we are asleep and we think that they have jurisdiction over us, they don't. They still don't. Because all we have to do is wake up and say, I'm a Moorish American national. And then all the covering comes off and no one breathing has jurisdiction over the Moors. Now, that's going to be something that we as a nation and as governments and all of that are going to have to come to terms with. And that is why peace is so important. That's why peace is so important. And peace has to be within us, because now that might seem like a free-for-all, but it is not a free-for-all, because the ancestors mean business. They will stop the breath if we keep knowingly doing things just because we feel like no one has jurisdiction over me. I can go out and harm others, you see. That's a mistake that the ancestors will take care of. I'm watching it with my own two eyes right now. Anyone running those stop signs that the ancestors put up, okay, we don't have to worry about them, because the ancestors will be like, let's go ahead and put that where it needs to be. And they do it every time. Now, I know that's a little bit difficult for people to understand, because we're coming out of colonization and we have been so used to others lording, quote unquote, lording over us a certain way, that we feel like, okay, we want our freedom, okay, and we're not going to let them do that. That's correct. We shouldn't. Exactly. In the chat, Justice, let's see, let me go back, because all of this is good. Everything found under Doctrine of Discovery. That's Justice Gilmore. Justice McVeigh Love is the head of the movement, yes. Justice Michelle Bay, she says we must maintain integrity. Absolutely. Let me tell you, it's not worth it not to. Justice McVeigh, the prophet said, don't even carry a pocket knife. And Justice Abbasi said, and honor. All of that is so absolutely true that it is just, the ancestors can show us better than they can tell us, okay? And we don't really want to be on the other side of that. The things that are going on in our nation right now, we are unstoppable. Unstoppable, trust and know, because we're out the gate now. We're all the way out of the gate. We're all the way out the gate. We're self-governing, period. We are doing that, okay? And knowing how to do that competently, with love and with honor and with integrity, is going to be so key. Justice Gilmore, he says in the chat, people trained by colonial rulers assume that government means controlling others to do their will. That is so far from the truth. That is just unbelievable. Just a moment. So,
Islam.
Islam.
This is Lamont Maurizel. What's the topic? What's the subject matter we're speaking about?
The topic is actually jurisdiction. The question for discussion is, do Moors have jurisdiction over other Moors?
Do Moors have jurisdiction over other Moors?
Yes, that's the topic, and the addendum to the topic is you should support your response with stare decisis and res judicata. So it's okay to give opinion, but
you mean as far as a judgment by your national peers?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Well, yeah. If there's a judgment made by your national peers and you're present, that's called a jury trial. Just
and
like
you're present.
Yeah, and just like when, yeah, well, but see, also that's where the first essential of due process of law, it's notice, actual notice or constructive. So if constructive notice was given but not actual notice, then due process of law still applies, such as constructive notice can be by way of ad in the newspaper, like in the classified section. They do it all the time when they give notices.
They who? They
of
who?
a case.
They who?
When I say they, I'm talking about the foreign European colonists that learned due process of law from our ancestors.
Okay.
So all of
they
this,
don't do
all
what
of the
we
stuff
do.
that
They don't
no,
do
no,
what
no,
we
no.
do. But go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
All of what they do, as far as in accordance with law, in accordance with Supreme Court case law, that make their decisions based off of the Constitution and treaty, is what our ancestors taught them. So that's our stuff. That's our knowledge.
But we can't use
process.
we taught them, but we can't use that stuff on sovereign. That's the purpose of
No. Due process of law is a universal law. That's not their stuff. That's our stuff. When they came over here, they learned government. They learned law and government. They learned autonomy, equal rights and equal law, so that they can live in a free society. Because remember, they came over here as colonists, slaves, for King George, who was a Moor. So the Sultan of Morocco, the emperor, I believe his name was Muhammad bin Abdullah Al. And that was the emperor of Morocco, the late emperor, and his son. He gave mandate by way of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship for them, for only 50 years in the beginning, in 1787, for them to live in peace and harmony and to develop this land in that specific territory, which is where the colonists resided at that time. Then, in the midst of that, there was, under the Articles of Confederation, there was a judicial department or a judicial branch created, which, what's his name? Benjamin Banneker Bay. He was the first Supreme Justice of that judicial Supreme Court. So we, in all of that, we were teaching them due process of law. We were teaching them how to establish a court in their county, which is really called a count. And the sheriff has jurisdiction over the counties. And you already know sheriff is really Sharif. That's our title. And just like governor is Bey. That's our title. So all of what they're doing, they got from us. They got from our forefathers. So that's why Noble Drew Ali said, get a good European education. And he can use you because all you're doing is learning your stuff that our forefathers taught them. You see what I'm saying? So due process of law is the first essential is notice, actual notice or constructive notice. So if notice was given, whether it's actual or constructive, now the second essential of due process of law applies, which is an opportunity to be heard. So if you give a notice, then now you have an opportunity to be heard. And if you don't state any rebuttal or answer, then that's called admission by silence. And you can look this up in the law dictionary. Go to the term admission. And then after admission, you look under admission, you look for admission by silence. So if a claim is made in the presence of another person against that individual, whether it's actual notice or constructive notice, and that individual fails to answer, then that's considered his admission by his silence. And that's what T-Mobile does when they send you an invoice. That's what the mortgage company do when they send you a claim in that foreclosure case. That's not a foreclosure case. That's an abandonment case. They're not.
Can we get back to the meeting? Please, Islam. We know this.
Islam.
I couldn't hear. Okay. Say that again.
Hold on, please. Hold on. First, I believe Empress Michelle was about to say something, and then there were two others about to say something. Go ahead. I know, Morris. I know y'all want to jump on that.
I wasn't trying to speak. That wasn't me.
Yes. Oh, okay.
It was Melo. It's Melo.
Okay. Yes. Empress Melo. Speak, please.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. Now you're talking about going back and said that this was our stuff.
Okay. Now, as far back as you just took us, where are the women? Where are the matriarchs in that? I can take you farther back than that in our ancestors. Okay. So you go back further than that, than what you just. I'm talking to the noble that was just giving all this stuff. Okay, from what I'm just going to say is from the Europeans. Okay, from the hybrids, and he said it was our stuff. Okay, but if you go back further than that. But when this whole question about do Moors have jurisdiction over other Moors, okay, that should not and never should be happen. Because if it is, then I need to get out of this whole thing right now. Because I signed a judicial proclamation.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm
Please
I listened to you. I listened to you. I signed a judicial proclamation. On number 12, it says, if any, it doesn't specify, it says, if any tribunal court finds absence of proof of jurisdiction over a person and subject matter, the case must be dismissed. Okay, and it gives a case, okay, fine. And the accuser bears a burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, so I don't care if the court is a Moorish court or whatever that you're going by. But I still say it's the matriarch. What you just told me about was those males, the patriarch that succeeded us or superseded us. Okay, that's what you need to go back to our original, because you're still from what I see, we're still dealing with them, because you're looking at it from a mindset of the Europeans. And the Europeans divide and separate. They separate and cut up. Yes, they do, brother. Yes, they do.
Wait a minute. When you deal with embassies and consulates from other nations that are not European, right? Let's just say, for an example, you go over to another nation and you break one of their laws. Now, you're not under their jurisdiction. However, they're going to contact your embassy. And it's up to your embassy whether you're going to get deported or not. Because you can say, okay, your embassy doesn't have jurisdiction over you, then guess what? The nation that you're in their territory. No. What I'm saying is you're talking about if Moors have jurisdiction over other Moors. I'm not talking about in regulating their rights. No. I'm talking about whenever there is an injury or a trespass done, then yes, they have jurisdiction. Your national peers, that's what that's all about. Your national peers have jurisdiction over the subject matter.
When you do harm to anyone, another individual doing harm to anyone else.
Yeah, they're going to bring that claim. They're going to bring that claim to your national peers, to your court.
Yes, but that's the only time that I'm saying is that when you do harm to another individual, you do physical harm to another individual.
Yeah, or you can commit, or you can commit treason, which is an overthrow of your government. That's not
when you're a Moor. When you're a Moor, what is treason? What's your definition of treason?
Treason is when you attempt to overthrow your government. That's what treason is. Everybody.
Just a moment, please.
It's not.
Okay, I'm going to yield. I'm going to yield.
We do. Thank you both, Empress Malo and Justice Lamont. Thank you both. We have to stay on the topic because getting off into treason and other things is subject matter. The first thing that must be overcome in terms of judicial processes is personam jurisdiction. We can't really go into subject matter until personam jurisdiction is established lawfully. And when we're talking about Europeans, that has nothing to do with this law of the sovereign. So that stuff that we've been seeing for the past 500 years doesn't apply to us. We gave it to them, but it doesn't apply to us in that manner. We're sovereign. It's different for us. Go ahead, Justice
Wait. You have the wrong. You're missing the concept. You can even listen to Taj's. You can even listen to Taj Tariq Bey's lecture. That does apply to us. It's just that they can't use it against us, but we use it against ourselves because that is the universal principle that our forefathers and foremothers taught the whole planet, when they civilized the whole planet. Those are universal principles. The highest principles are love, truth, peace, and freedom. When those 4 principles have been violated, then justice must take its course. That's what that means.
You're correct. That is correct.
So those principles are most definitely applicable to us within our society.
Okay. You're correct. You're correct. Let me say you're correct about that. Love, truth, peace, freedom, justice. Absolutely. Do no harm to others. Absolutely. Now let's if you will allow the other ones to respond also, because we do want to stay on personam jurisdiction here. We're not talking about anything other than the person or the body, because we're not persons. We're bodies. We are God. Who has jurisdiction over God? Justice Maddox, go ahead.
Islam. The two quotes on the judicial proclamation were, if any tribunal court finds absence of proof of jurisdiction over a person and subject matter, the case must be dismissed. That's case law. That's Louis versus Motley. The second one was, lack of federal jurisdiction cannot be waived or overcome by agreement of parties. Griffin versus Matthews. Now here's the deal. Want of jurisdiction may not be cured by consent of parties. Now, that's case law. That doesn't apply in a venue of sovereigns. One sovereign does not have jurisdiction over another unless they consent. If they consent to it, then that's one thing. If they don't, then they don't have it. And it can't be generated or somehow created out of something, out of anything, really. The other thing that I'd point out is that contract makes law. You agree to something, then that's the conditions that you're held to. The benefit or the truth of sovereignty is you can change your mind at any time because you feel obligated to be a driver in a state that doesn't even exist. When you come to the realization that that is not a valid contract and you made it under some false pretense, or in any other situation, whatever the reason is, a sovereign can change his mind. I would ask the speaker, the previous speaker, if he believes that Moors are sovereign, because I think that's a fundamental question in this conversation.
So this is Islam. So this is the concept that you're missing, brother. You're right. All law is consent. So when you consent to be a part of a society, it's no different than consenting to be a part of an organization or a corporation, like something that you work for.
Islam.
So as soon as you consent to that society is governed by rules or laws by consent. So just like you can get fired from a job for breaking the policy of that job, you can get exiled out of the society. So no, you can't be thrown in prison by a Moorish American unless he's going to kidnap you. However, you could be exiled, and government was put in place for the sole purpose of protecting the rights of the people. So if you are committing any type of volatile act against the people that do them harm, then yes, you can get exiled. Now, who's going to help you protect and enforce your rights if your people don't have your back, your sovereign people? That's what treason is. No different than a person getting fired from a job because he broke policy.
Islam.
Now, okay, you're not going to, your economy has stopped from here on out because you broke the policy. So now you're fired. That's another way of saying you're exiled. So that, yeah,
okay.
That's where the misunderstanding might be coming in at, because it's not necessarily when you read those case laws. They're dealing with jurisdiction in regards to states and citizens. None of those case laws have deal with Moorish Americans. None of them.
Okay.
Those are all Europeans, and the case law is dealing with some form of a commercial contract or commercial agreement or the jurisdiction of the state. And that's all listed under Article 3, Section 2, where the judicial power extends to. Islam. So, you know, just like if we're in a family, if you're my brother and we both have a father and mother, but you violated the principles of our family, you can get exiled.
Okay.
And
hold it, please, because we're continuing to talk about rules and things like that. We're really talking about personam jurisdiction here. You can't really compare that to anything else. Islam. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make one quick point. Two things. One, a society, a corporation, or any of the other things that you mentioned are different from a sovereign nation and a nation of sovereigns. Now, I've had this conversation several times. A state is not sovereign. It cannot be sovereign because it's a corporation, and corporations cannot be sovereign. Now, the question remains unanswered at this moment as to whether or not the previous speaker feels that, or believes that, or knows that, or overstands that Moors are sovereign. And I haven't heard an answer to that question.
Moors are sovereign. Brother, hold on. Interjection. Brother, Moors are sovereign. I can start a corporation, and I'm still sovereign. My corporation is not sovereign, but I'm sovereign. If I start a corporation and you work for my corporation and you're sovereign and I'm sovereign, you're a Moorish American, I'm a Moorish American, but you violate the policy of the corporation, you're fired. It's no different than if you violate the laws of a nation, of a sovereign nation that are of sovereign people. People that are a sovereign nation is a nation of sovereign people that came together to start and form a society known as a government. You know what I'm saying? So a nation is nothing but a family of tribes that are of all of the same consanguine. They're all of the same bloodline. Now, if somebody commits treason within the people, then that individual is exiled from that nation. You can look up the definition of exile so that you can see and understand.
Islam.
So yes, Moorish Americans, to clearly answer your question, if Moorish Americans or Moors are sovereign, absolutely we're sovereign. And together we make a sovereign nation. That's what the left side on the back of the dollar bill, the left side, that's the seal of the Moorish nation, the sovereign Moorish nation, which consists of sovereign Moors. You understand what I'm saying? So if one of those Moors or a group of those Moors commit treason, then they get exiled from that sovereign nation. They can still be sovereign, but they ain't going to be sovereign over here. And then if you choose to stay, then that's called war, which is what the states did when they expatriated from the Union, the Confederate States, that is. And that's called committing treason. So now they can't come back into the constitutional fold again. That's why the Southerners, and this is what Prophet Noble Drew Ali said in the Divine Warning, that's why the Southerners had to come back in the constitutional fold by way of the 14th Amendment, which was deemed unconstitutional, because they can't get back into the Union because they committed treason. And they're all of the same lineage. They're all foreign European colonies. But they committed treason.
Islam.
Okay,
two things. One, we're getting off topic. And two, that's not accurate. But I don't want to get into a conversation about the Confederacy. I would be happy to. Feel free to contact me anytime. We will. No. Hold on one second.
This is a public forum. I was only using that as an example. But
exactly, but we're supposed to be talking about something totally different.
If you're saying if Moors are sovereign, then that means another Moor or a group of sovereign Moors don't have jurisdiction, jurisdiction over that one sovereign Moor. But what I'm saying is,
can we hold for just a moment?
Y'all chill out, please.
There's a lot of people speaking right now.
Islam. Just a moment, please. Hold on, please. Hold on. I want to get a little bit of order in the meeting so we can hear everybody, because we do want the other Moors to be able to contribute as well. So we want to give all Moors an opportunity to speak and you know, give them an opportunity, because we need to hear from everybody. This is a national call. We have to hear from everyone. And again, this is not directed at one or two people. This is for all Moors to talk about. And all Moors are free to have their sovereign, just a moment please. They're free to have their sovereign opinions. Let's respect one another's lawful sovereign opinions. Okay, so I believe Empress Brandy was about to say something. With regard to the question.
Islam. Yes, this is in regard to the question. You are asking the question of a Moor having personam jurisdiction. When a Moor is a sovereign, as a sovereign, every sovereign has the right to choose a choice, correct? Right or wrong?
They have a right to what now? To do what?
You have, as a sovereign, to choose a choice. Whether you contract, whether you don't, correct or right? Right or wrong?
At any time you have that choice, and you can change it 2 seconds later because you're sovereign. Go ahead.
But when you have a de jure contract with another sovereign national, that takes it to another level, correct? Right or wrong?
There's no other level that's higher than sovereign. And a sovereign has the right to make a contract and then change their mind 2 seconds later. We do it all the time with the service corporation because we just didn't know.
Okay, but corporation, because they are below your status. But when you are a Moor on the same sovereign level as another Moor, and you breach a contract that you put your wet autograph in your seal to, which is the highest seal of the land, to make sure that it binds you to not commit certain egregious acts against your nation, against the Grand Supreme Judicial Body, which you did commit. That's why grounds for your removal came up. And you chose, after getting due notice, to have due lawful process, to not appear to defend yourself. And you were notified that your absence was going to be considered acquiescence and admission of guilt. And you chose as your sovereign self to not appear for lawful proceedings at an Article 3 consular court of your peers for the Grand Supreme Judicial Body, that you breached a trust agreement that we had that put the nation and the nationals at the utmost security. So that's why you were removed, not because, people are infringing or trying to get jurisdiction. We respect and honor your right as as a sovereign. We're not infringing on your rights as a sovereign. But as Brother Lamont stated, you can't be a sovereign in our society when you commit egregious acts against the nation and against the nationals. Islam, I yield.
Islam. You're free to have that opinion, Empress Brandy. However, no sovereign has jurisdiction over another without the consent of the sovereign. And even, let us go to the law. Again, please don't interrupt, because I didn't interrupt you. There. The law states jurisdiction cannot be waived even by consent of both parties. That's what sovereignty is. And also, lack of jurisdiction cannot be overcome even by consent of both parties. So hold on, please. I'm not done yet, because I gave you as much time as you needed. Just give me a moment. I just want to quote the law. And so, according to the law, hold on, please.
You do not answer. You do not have to answer to those egregious acts. You do not have to be held accountable and responsible for those and answer to the nation. Yes, you do, even as a sovereign. We, the people, as sovereigns, deserve that justice too. You are not above justice, like Tajiri Bey. Unfortunately, that's not how we be a sovereign. Islam,
what in the heck is going on here? Are we?
Yeah,
why are we?
Please hold on.
I am confused. I'm really confused right now.
I just wanted to give her an opportunity to please. Can we?
We need to have some order.
Yes, please.
We need to have some order.
Thank you. Please, some order now. I wanted to get, the only reason that went as long as it did is because I wanted to give her an opportunity to get whatever she has on her chest off of her chest, because she feels very strongly about it. Now, we're going to go back again to the question, and then stare decisis and res judicata. The law is what we're going to go by, and we'd like to hear from some that we've not heard from. And again, we're not talking about specific instances or things like that. We want to talk about the law, and let's keep it on the law. Islam, go ahead, Empress.
I can read the lawful decree issued by the Grand Supreme Judicial Body.
Empress Brandy, can you? Okay, we heard you, but I want to give the other Empress a moment to speak, please. If you'll respect her sovereignty as well.
I absolutely do. Go ahead. I apologize.
Thank you. Go ahead, Empress.
I'm not exactly sure exactly which Empress you're talking about. I'm just hearing a lot of going in and out of the matrix type of deal right now. And I thought law was specific. It only meant one thing. And if you're not doing it, then you're serving two gods going in and out of the matrix. I yield.
Islam, that is correct. Hold on, please. Hold on, please.
Okay.
Hold on, please. Hold on, please. Because that's not, we want to give, because we had not heard from her. So we wanted to give her an opportunity to speak. And please, even if you don't agree, please allow the other Moors who've not spoken to speak, please, okay? So again, I agree with her. There is some going in and out of the matrix. It's okay. Anyone who does that, until they know that we're not in and out of the matrix anymore, because there's no other side over there. There's only sovereign law, okay? And that's it. That other stuff doesn't even exist anymore, okay? So, Justice Apollo, that's very, you want to speak on that? Because
Islam.
Go ahead, Justice Apollo. Islam.
Oh.
Go ahead.
This is Lamont Mauritel.
I was actually looking to hear from Justice Apollo, because we've actually heard from you quite often, and we'd like to hear from some of the other Moors as well.
I wasn't even aware of the subject matter.
Go ahead, Justice Apollo. Please hold, please. Justice Apollo, go ahead.
Oh, no, I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, if we follow in the universal law and being ourselves, we won't have to worry about any of this. So, I yield with that.
You know what, that is very true, and that was actually my point from the beginning, is that as we walk in our sovereign status, there's a little bit of an echo in the back. Hold on, let me just find out where the echo is. There's a little bit of echo. I'm just going to mute a couple of people because there's reverberation coming from somewhere.
You know.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. There is, with regard to universal law, someone, okay, I guess I will have to do that. I didn't really want to do that. Okay, there is, with regard to universal law, I'm sorry, go ahead, Justice Islam, because we have not.
No, I was just going to tell you who it is that was, but they muted already, so you're good. Islam.
I actually had to mute everyone because there was a bit of an echo going on. And then when you all want to speak, please just star 6. It's specifically those we've not heard from, okay? I know there's a lot of emotion. This is an emotionally charged thing, but as a nation, we have to work these issues through, because we cannot run back to the citizenship piece. We have to work these things out, okay? There was no, let's see. So first let me talk about briefly Justice Apollo. That was what I was talking about initially, where we are actually going to have to allow, and this is something that a lot of us are having to work through the programming about. We're going to have to allow the ancestors within us to be our guide in this grand rising that we're in. There is not going to be any other person lording over the Moors. No one can do that. It's impossible. The ancestors sent us here to learn how to use our inner guide, which is universal law, within us, so that we'll do the right thing, and if we don't do the right thing, we'll be recycled back through here. And even while we're here, we will suffer the consequences of not listening to the ancestors when they speak to us from within us. Justice, go ahead.
Quick comment. If people do not get that, they'll be dropped on their heads repeatedly. Islam.
They will be. And I don't even like to cast spells like that. Because
real.
That is, listen, it's a real thing. And that is truer than anything else. Now, I don't want to get into anything aside from the actual. Let's let Justice Kadar speak, and then Justice Joniah. And if we will keep it to the topic of do Moors have personam jurisdiction over other Moors, and then quote their decisive and res judicata. Thank you. Go ahead, Justice.
Islam. We have to address the fact that as sovereigns, and that seems to be the misnomer that we are acting under in regards to, or for, in regards to how our word and our actions indeed determine our harm. We can't, just because we're sovereigns, if I harm another Moor in action, indeed, that means that, okay, I'm sovereign. After that, I don't consent. And so therefore, I have no obligation to justice. Justice is put in place for just that cause. And if a word is supposed to be, Moor is supposed to be upright, the principles that our ancestors left us is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. There can be no peace without truth. They were put in that order for a specific reason. It was a divine reason that was left that way. So if I don't operate in truth and I harm because of my word, which we say contract or whatever, then I'm harming another Moor. And if I put my signature, say, nope, didn't really mean that, then that causes harm to a Moor. And justice must take its course. And justice is, if I'm a part of a society or a group, a government, as we as a nation are, sovereigns collectively, and I harm another sovereign, that's why our ancestors put everything in place so that we and Moors could have justice. Justice is the last principle. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So I only have freedom when I love. He says, the prophet said, love instead of hate. And then is followed by truth, which means a Moor has to be able to be responsible, held accountable for their actions, their words. And then it's followed by what? Then peace resides. And then what? Freedom. Because now I have the freedom to be a part of a society of sovereigns that we operate and justice prevails. If any one of those are violated, I violated more than just one of those principles. And that's the case of bringing things to justice, bringing people and holding them accountable to their word. That's where we're talking about being exiled. We have to act and be according to law. We are law abiders. That's why our ancestors created an arena for sovereigns, for us, a nation of sovereigns, to be able to operate and not have confusion. If Moors walk around saying I'm sovereign and they do everything they want, whether they violate other Moors or not, I'm sovereign, that's confusion. So with that, I yield.
Islam.
Thank you. Islam. Justice Joniah was going to speak. Please allow her to speak.
I was. I'm not sure if I should, but I also I'm going to try to explain what I see, because we're looking at it as being something real. This is like we're, I think it was Justice W. Barker Bay was talking about the matrix. Within that matrix, there's certain things that we believe are real, and so we're acting and responding to them. And this situation is getting like way out of proportion, accusing and putting labels on each other and making it real is only real in this dimension, but in reality, no one has gotten hurt. So that is natural law. No one has gotten hurt. It's easy enough for any one of us to govern and sovereign ourselves without having to try to create laws to cause injury. There is no injury when you know yourself and know who you are. I yield.
Islam.
Islam. Let me. I come back to that.
Hold on, please.
There is injury.
I'm sorry. Hold on, please. Whoa. Hold on. Okay. The question is do Moors have jurisdiction over others? We did agree at the beginning of this conversation we're not going into anything specific. We want to stick to the topic. Justice Maddox was actually going to say something, and then I believe Justice Kadar was going to say something, and then Empress Brandy was going to say something. But we have to stick to the topic. I know I know you are hurt. I know Empress Brandy wants you want to say what you want to say, but the fact that the Moors have to ask what happened means that no one's been injured. And just because one person says that doesn't mean that's the case. So now, Justice Maddox, please speak. And then, yes.
So this whole conversation is meant to be centered on personam jurisdiction.
Please stay there.
I'll say this. The conversation about personam jurisdiction is crucially important. Everything starts and stops with jurisdiction. Many of us want to do lots of processes and all kinds of other things, which is fine, except it's not really necessary, because if jurisdiction doesn't exist, then everything starts and stops with jurisdiction. The problem for most is that they have open contracts that obligate them to this thing or that thing. The termination of corporate contracts does away with that idea, those obligations, because every obligation that we have in the quote-unquote United States is corporate in nature. There are no other de jure or unincorporated governments. All the other governments are corporations. So in the end, de jure government is not a corporation. It's not a society. All of that, I'm kind of torn, because I feel like I'll say this, and I'll keep it general. I was a party to whatever that whole thing that everybody's kind of talking around but not talking about.
Yeah, we don't really need to talk about that, because the question is what it is. Please stay on the question, please. Please stay on the question of, do Moors have jurisdiction over other sovereign Moors? That's the question. We need to stay there.
So,
I know that there's a temptation to go there, but we want to answer that first.
I'll say this. The answer to that is not without consent. That's the answer.
Islam. You're exactly right. TSM Bay here. Listen, we got to change the conversation to responsibility. Nobody has jurisdiction over another Moor, but we are responsible to each other. Our responsibility is born from our community. Somebody talked about tribes earlier. You know, we're just nothing but a nation of tribes. Within that tribe, you have what Chancellor Williams talked about, or the Council of Elders. And the Council of Elders are responsible for the government and the body politic of that tribe. We are responsible to each other. We don't have jurisdiction. We don't have jurisdiction over each other, but we are responsible to implement the body consciousness, what we call just a minute. I have one more thing to say. When we talk about individuality, we talking about that coming from the body conscious of the community. Now, you won't know anything other than the body conscious if we all are teaching others this is the body conscious of our community. You don't have any jurisdiction over anybody, but you have responsibility to each other. So I would like to say we have responsibility, and we must interface with each other and have responsibility. And so that's the bottom line, responsibility to implement our body consciousness.
Islam. There was
Islam.
Go ahead, Justice. Go ahead, Justice.
Islam. I just really quick. I just want to say two things. First is that if a Moor can't have personal jurisdiction over another Moor, and if we're all staying in honor, then there's no circumstance for any Moor to be violated by another Moor in the first place. Now, if it happens, then you're in dishonor at that point. So, of course, there are going to be consequences for being in dishonor. You can't just be in dishonor and think that there are no consequences. So, just keep that in mind too. If a Moor is dishonoring his noble status and is not, having that, he or she not having that respect and honor and seriousness for all the responsibility that comes with having so much nobility and power that we have, then nature will actually take care of you. And if we're one and the same with nature, it's almost kind of like we're just kind of changing our hat. We're just putting on our nature hat, or just switching up what we are, because we're so many things at once. So I just wanted to say that, just be yourself. And this conversation is actually important because it's actually going to preserve peace forever. So that's very important. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are kind of, just going through the knowledge of esotericism in general. People are just they're ready to go because, it's not redeemable down here. You know what I'm saying? It can always just go back to what it was before. Not if we're doing our job. You see? So I'll yield with that.
Islam. Thank you for that. Is Islam? There. Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Empress. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm coming in late in the conversation. I apologize for that. You had mentioned that following the Constitution is what we must do, and we must. And I've made little comments about certain things that really deeply concern me because, I think that we're running out of time for the rest of the world. And not that I care so much about what other people think, but there is a lineup, and according to the Constitution, there is an order that we must follow. And the order, I don't believe, is still being followed. It might be that we're just not there yet. The fear is, when people figure out what this order is, people may go crazy again, and it's why the Moors have always had these problems. The constellation, the astrology, astronomy is all part of the Constitution. The Constitution changed in 2003, so the universe and its elements are only recognizing a certain type of people now. And, I'm a carbon woman. I have light-skinned carbon children. They are a huge concern for me, but the elements are different and affect us all differently. So, it was mentioned before that we're all the same, and that's not true. There's a frequency difference. I want to say more things, but I don't want to scare anybody. But 2008, 2009, I was contacted just about by every Illuminati group, top pyramid and bottom pyramid, and I did not go forward. But I got to learn a lot of things, and my first question was, why me? And it's according to the astrology, the Constitution, what my birth chart said. In the Chaldean or Chaldean order, some people may call it, these people watch every single being that is born here. And on certain dates, like an eclipse, like a full planet alignment, you see that whenever the Roman Empire or the royal family has a baby, and they put it on TV for a reason. Because we, we're considered completely different beings, and we are privy to no jurisdiction in reality. And so it doesn't matter what color or type of skin that they come here, like Trump, they're here to help, even though it may not look like they are. So we can't do things like lean them. That's big trouble. I was also born veiled. That's when the doctor has to remove a film from my head. I also have 3 daughters who are born veiled. That's 4. That's reality, not 3, the circle. So we're a pretty powerful bunch here. And I think it's so crucial that we really get, the information from the Chaldean order, which we can command them to give us, and they're ready to give it to us, so the astrologer that's here weekly can get that information. There's another constellation. It's called the 13th one, and that has to do with the angels. That's Moors and the Moorish, and there is a difference. That's huge. So we need to get that information and start reading, about where we are in the cosmos now, because I don't think we're getting that peace. It's nothing to be afraid of. The rest of the world is ready to, if we were to write whatever it is we write to the royal families, to the elites, and command them for information, they're ready to come over here, or we go there to be our teachers. And I think that Light, that they do follow you. I know that you leaned, that gentleman there that came up with all the vaccines, and you leaned his home. Well, he went and got the Queen of England, or Mrs. Windsor, went and put a crown on his head to semi-protect him. But Russia has banned all of his products out of their country, so they have a setup between the provost marshal, they have all this linking going on. Russia is ready to back us. So I think that if we can get that and I'm not an astrologer, I think I just want to make this point so that we know that, we are wonderful. There is a real world out there. The whole universe is now watching every single move we make. Since 2007, every single realm levels that would normally have nothing to do with us, but because they threaten to blow up the whole universe using the carbon they stole from our bodies, they got everybody's attention. So everybody is watching us. Everybody is on our side. And I think that, if we can really focus on that constitution that is astronomically involved, I think that would be a really great thing. And, sometimes I think we as Moors, we as groups, just like any, there may be misunderstandings. Sometimes we're all saying the same thing and not hearing it. There's got to be a way we can pick up the phone and say, hey, and you said this is offensive to me. I think this is unfair. Putting someone out there in front of a lot of people is embarrassing, and I don't think that's the way to go about it. You need another person to mediate. Bottom line, when you leave that conversation, everyone should feel happy so that it doesn't come in, because I think that when somebody is defending something, they're actually defending something else that they're not saying. And it is important that we get along, not because we're worried about what other people think, but just because we're a family, and things can easily be worked out. Islam.
Thank you for that. I did not know that he had gone and tried to seek remedy for the liens that we placed if he's on our land unlawfully. And even going to the Queen and having her put a crown on his head or whatever he did, or going to Russia or whomever, whatever was done, we have to, and I want to get back to the subject, I want to stay on the subject, but with regard to any of that, anyone unlawfully occupying our land will be liened by the Moors. That is a promise. That's something we must do so that our land can get back into its lawful status. That's not a war thing or anything like that. We're not warring against anyone. In fact, let me say this openly. We are at peace, and we're going to stay at peace among one another, within ourselves, and with all of the other nations of the earth. We are at peace, and we will not declare war on anyone. We will, however, get our land back in alignment. That's what these conversations are about. And that is what we're going to continue to stay focused on. We could easily get caught up in those things, the subject matters, but and we talk about subject matters. We're going to continue to talk about subject matters within our own nation. But we also are in the process now of continuing to stand, continuing to govern. We're not always going to agree, but we are going to always be of the same bloodline and birthright, nation and government. We are not a society. We are a nation and a government and a bloodline of heirs, sovereign heirs. And we're going to stay that. We'll always be that. We're not a corporation. We're not a 501c3. We're none of that. We are exactly who we say we are. So that's beautiful. I'm so glad that you contributed that information because, you know, we've had one or two say that the liens don't work, but we know that people are scrambling trying to get those liens remedied, but they cannot get them remedied even by going to the queen until they come through the heirs. Now, back to the topic. The question is, do any Moors have jurisdiction over other Moors? Okay? And that's the question. And please, if someone could quote res judicata or stare decisis, that would be great.
Empress Light.
Yes.
This is Justice Amber Bay, Kitsap Territory, Islam, Grand Rising, everybody. I wrote a few notes about stare decisis and res judicata, and to answer your question about personam jurisdiction, when you start with astrology in the first house, which is Aries, I am.
Hold on for just a moment, Empress. Hold on for, because there's some, go ahead. Okay, go ahead, Empress. Go ahead.
When you start with the first house in astrology of Aries, you're dealing with I am, and that deals with personam jurisdiction because when you say personam, you're talking about yourself. And that ties into the seventh house, which is Libra, and that deals with contracts, whether it's verbal or written, because the action coming from Aries deals with what you write down, which will be the intellect, the mental connection to what you're doing. So with us as sovereigns, we're sovereign mentally first before we do something physically, but also it comes from you being able to stand on your own without anyone else, but then collectively be able to come with others and be a nation of sovereigns. So if you look at examples like a movie like Rain Man, the guy that was in the hospital, he was mentally incapacitated where he couldn't make his own decisions, although he still had an inheritance. And so the hospital they were treating him like a ward because he wasn't able to make his own decisions, but they all were able to do things on his behalf. So essentially that's what's going on with us. We have forgotten who we are, and we have forgotten a lot of other things that make us sovereign coming into the Aquarian age, which is essential because we have to be able to deal with all kinds of people, not that everybody is here, regardless of how they got here. And overall, when you're dealing with res judicata, it says the fair administration of justice and honesty to prevent abuse from law. So in order for you to be able to judge, which is the capacity to make a decision, you'd have to be in your proper person, which starts with I am, which is the house of Aries. So when you try to skip to different houses like the seventh house and you haven't dealt with the house of self, then you haven't dealt with who is in personam jurisdiction or who is in a subject status. And then when you go to stare decisis, it is to stand by things decided or to cut off. So the decision was made that we were sovereign from the cosmos. That was never something that could really be argued again. But if we're incapacitated mentally and we forgot that we're connected to the stars and we forgot that we have birth charts and we have placements that let us know where our midhaven is, which is really your career. And a career is just your message, what you're carrying out. It's not necessarily what you do. What you do is tied to the action aspect of astrology, but there's different elements that deal with what you should be doing depending on the 12 houses and where those signs are in each house. So I'm just encouraging all Moors, which are really Muslims, which is muscle and tissue. You start there with your body, and then you go with like what you should be doing with your body. Some people may not need to do physical demonstrations because they may be they may have more, they may have less planets or no planets in those houses, so they don't need to do that in this life. My birth chart led me to my nationality because I wanted to know who I was from an astrological point of view, and that lines up with my inheritance. It literally tells me in my chart based off which houses are empty and which houses are full and what's in and how many planets are in there, what I'm supposed to be doing outside of everybody else, which makes me sovereign again. So sovereignty is bigger than just the laws and all that. That came after. First, it starts with you. Yeah. We were all a thought and a frequency before we came into being. So you have to deal with your energy because Libra rules, it's ruled by Venus, which is about love and material things, but once again, open enemies, because we have a contract with beings that are not really us, but they're pretending to be us. And then there's all these movies out here that break this down, but we're not able to understand it because we've been under mind control. So I yield. I have a lot to say, but I had to write all these notes so I could try to touch on different things. Thank you.
Islam.
Yeah. Islam. So when you talk about personam jurisdiction and this topic right here, she brought up a very important point. Why do you think we look at birth charts and look at how we match up with the stars and all of that? We look at that stuff because that is what governs us also. We have to look to the higher government, our higher selves. We wouldn't need all that if we had somebody over us. We wouldn't need all of that. If we could just give our sovereignty to anybody and have anybody ruling over us, why do you think we're the rulers of the universe? We are that. The rulers for the universe, the heirs to all land, all natural resources, and all commerce. We're that because we are not and cannot be governed by, and I can't say, our government is within us. That the word government itself, govern your mental. And we use the chart, the birth charts and the stars and the astrology and the law, the supreme sovereign law of the land to do that. And then the ancestors begin to come out of us, and they don't come out of us, but they emanate from us. And they tell us that we are to be unified with one another, okay? Govern your mental, not have someone else govern a sovereign. We did the definition of sovereign. A definition of sovereign is the supreme one. If you're supreme, no one's over you. Now, one last thing. Is there anyone on this call that is a sovereign who, and this is a yes or no, who thinks that anyone else has sovereign jurisdiction over them right now today? Is there anyone on this call who can name someone who has sovereign jurisdiction over you? Name the person who has sovereign jurisdiction over you. Name them. And if you don't say your own appellation, then you don't know who you are. Period. If you don't know that no one is over you but you, then you still got to learn and find out who you are. You have to find out who you are. Islam? Okay. Justice Reedqua. Okay. There's a little bit of noise coming from your side over there. Are you trying to speak, Justice Reedqua?
I don't know why, because I'm here alone and I'm not near traffic or anything, so I don't know why they were saying that, or whatever is happening.
We can barely hear you. Can you speak up just a little bit louder, Empress?
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, Empress.
All right. I have a comment and a question. Sure. My comment would be that, from a historical standpoint, when I look at like the letter that George Washington wrote to the Sultan, he mentions the fact that there were some Moors who did not want to, he implied that they didn't want to abide by the treaty. And he thanked him for getting people in line. So, you know, an organized country or government, there has to be someone leading, or somebody that makes the treaties, or somebody that, you know, is in charge. You can't have a whole bunch of people just running around, everybody doing what they want. That's the Wild Wild West. And we don't want the Wild Wild West here, I don't think. So there has to be, you know, so we don't have a sultan, and we don't have, you know, we don't have a caliphate or a caliph or anything like that, but there has to be some organization, and if those people are by birth, or if they are elected, or however we choose to do it, those people, we're going to have to, they're going to have some say-so. I mean, everybody can't sign a treaty. Every sovereign in the whole country can't sign a treaty. How long would that take? So, I mean, there has to be an organization and a leadership.
Islam.
And my question is, I keep hearing this term personam jurisdiction. Now, personam jurisdiction, I have a third edition, 1933, Black's Law Dictionary, and I have the digital fourth. And neither one of them has that term in it. And I'd like to know where that term came from, because I'm not finding it in the dictionary, and I don't know where else to.
First, yes, that's beautiful, Empress. Hold on for just a moment. There's a feedback coming from somewhere. Okay. All right. So, with regard to your question, personam, yes, hold on for just a minute. They were separate terms at one point. But again, there are a lot of terms that we have never yet seen because we've not been shown, and I can't even say we've not been shown the Akashic Records. The purpose of Akashic Records is so that we remember. We can't have someone tell us. We actually have to remember through our study, through our demonstration. Personam jurisdiction, it is actually a lawful term, and you can do a little bit more research. You could actually Google personam jurisdiction and find it. And then in the Black's Law Dictionary, personam, there are versions of it in different words. So if you, for example, if you look up a word like the word person, in the brackets where they talk about Latin and what the Latin term for that word is, you'll see different versions of person. We're not persons. We are sovereign. We're sovereigns. Okay, we're not persons. Persons is a corporate term. We're not that. So in order to find persona, you would actually have to get an even older dictionary than the ones you have. It's there. Just like all of the other words, consul and all of that. Those words all are all ancient terms. And there are many of the ancient books and writings that are held at the Vatican that we've not seen yet that have those terms in them. Now, even when it comes to jurisdiction has been a term for many, many years. But if you Google it, they may be spelling it the ancient way, so nothing may come up. Or one or two things may come up, and they're going to be corporate. How do I know they're going to be corporate? Because we, Moors, have not been writing the sovereign definitions for them. We're the Phoenicians. And we've not been writing the definitions that need to be out there for the sovereign. And that's what we're doing now, is updating all records so that they reflect our sovereign status. That's what the writing of the laws is, and the videos that go out talking about laws and things like that. All of that is putting on the public record the sovereign version, which is the only truth, the sovereign truth of law. And there are going to be some terms that are not in Black's Law Dictionary, but remember, Black's Law Dictionary was copied and edited, just like the Bibliothèque, by the Albions, and they took out anything that looked like sovereignty, true sovereignty. See, they'll put in there about kings and stuff, but they know kings are not sovereign without any delegation from the heir. That's why they step down when they want to step down, and popes and all of that. People can take them out of their places. You know, people can vote the Pope out or whoever at the Vatican. They have bodies and things that can vote those people out or put them out. They've done it several times. The sovereigns don't have that. The sovereigns don't have that. Where you can, unless we consent to an office. If we consent to an office, then we can be voted out of that office. Okay. I don't know of anybody. I never had an office. I don't have an office. I'm a justice with the Moorish American Consulate. I'm a justice with the government. That will never change. That's my bloodline and birthright. That's not going to change, you know. But that's the same. That's the same sovereign authority that you all have. That is an authority. It's not an office. All Moors have that. Okay. So with regard to personam jurisdiction, you have to do some more digging, Empress, to find it. Okay. The sovereign supreme law of the land governs. However, other sovereign, because we are the law, no other sovereign can overcome our will. Because, see, our will is what directs everything. Our will and our intention. Okay? So it is about 5-6 minutes until the hour. Morris, I'm so glad we're here at this point to have these discussions, because this means that we have truly graduated. We have truly graduated. We are governing ourselves. It's not going to be a cakewalk, so to speak, all the time. It's going to be good. It's going to be great all the time. Okay, when we look at it from the standpoint that all things work together for our good. Okay, but don't be afraid to have these conversations with your nation. Okay, because we can't, this is not a conversation that subjects are privy to. They cannot come into these and start governing and talking about things like that. This is for the sovereign heirs. This is holy breath. These conversations and these discussions is holy breath. Okay, we have to have these. We're going to have them for the next 1,000 years. We're not always going to agree, but we cannot exile one another out of our nation. That is a consent issue. There's no such thing as a group of Moors exiling somebody else. Our ancestors didn't do it that way. Check it out. Now that the Albions have done it that way, but not us. We never did that. In ancient times, we didn't do that. Okay? Until the fall started happening. Now, during the fall, you can point and say a whole bunch of stuff happened, but we're on the rise. So we don't do that. We love one another in ways that go far beyond emotion. Love comes first, then truth, then peace, freedom, peace, and justice. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I'm sorry, in that order. And at all times. Are there any other comments or questions with regard to the topic?
Islam. Okay, Islam, this is Empress Sade Aliyah Satia El Bay, and I'm from the Illinois Territory. I'm chiming in today. I just want to say, with personam jurisdiction, I've always been told they had to deal with the body, because anytime they brought you into their courts, and I'm only saying this for a reference point, they always talk about the defendant, and they always want to say they had jurisdiction over your body. So even with us being sovereigns, yes, there is no one that has jurisdiction over our bodies. Okay? No one can do that. Even when it comes to contract, yes, people break contracts all the time. We're not saying that is honorable, okay? You know, they may be held in dishonor for breaking the contract. But it is up to that person whether they want to consent to the contract or not. They do not have to consent to the contract. It is dishonorable. But you must know that there is a choice that has to be made within all of us, whether we want to consent to it or not. And there will be consequences for that, whether through the ancestors and the universe consequences, or whether we try to, have our own consequences with that more. I mean, that's up to us. But you cannot make someone keep a contract, period. You can't do it. I don't care who you are. I mean, even if you wasn't sovereign, people try to get you to keep a contract, and a lot of people break them. Bottom line, though, as far as just personal jurisdiction, no one has control over your body, Period. Period.
Islam.
I yield.
Islam.
Islam.
I have one. Islam. Islam.
Yes, go ahead, Justice.
Uh-oh. Am I being heard? Okay. I just have one thing to suggest to all the Moors on the call. Look, and if you don't have it, ask for it. I will be happy to share it. But also, every other member of the judiciary has it, and that is what we call the 108s. Because if you read that and study it, number 17 of the 108 says what are known as the 7 elements of jurisdiction. It breaks it down there, but there's a couple pages of information you can read there, and it all comes from, as Empress Light was asking, if anyone can quote from any of the res judicata or any of those, you know, because you want to make sure you're not talking about what you feel, but what you know, and if you don't know, you have to study it. So law, because law is very specific, and once you study that, you'll find that, maybe I need to look at it again. That's all I wanted to pass on. Islam.
Enough said. I am in agreement. Enough said with that. I'm so glad to hear from everyone on this topic, because we need to hear from everyone. We need to discuss this as a nation. And to me, I think this went very well because we got to hear all sides, okay? And that's important. Let's keep doing this because we passed a major milestone this week. We are able to disagree without Albion interference. Let's just marinate on that one until the next meeting. We'll have our next meeting on Sunday at 6 p.m., which is an hour earlier than this one, and we will have more discussion. We have to do this. We have to do this. This is the part that, you know, we love to say we're heirs, and we are, but this is the governing part. We got to get this part too. Islam, I yield. Peace and grand rising to the almighty Moors. Islam.
Islam.
Moors.
Islam. Islam.
Peace and love, everybody.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. Grand rising. Peace and love.
Yes.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. Peace and love. Peace and love.